Fuck Jake Paul.
Jake, throughout.
Mike Tyson just terminated Jake Paul after Jake decided to cancel their fight. Right after the press conference, Tyson had simply asked Jake a few straightforward questions and then mentioned wanting to tweak a couple of rules for their November 15th match, and Jake responded like someone just flipped his world upside down. He started yelling at Tyson as if the idea of changing the rules was some personal attack, but let's not forget back in March 2024, Jake was practically on his knees begging Tyson for this fight. He even agreed to fight under Tyson's conditions and signed on the dotted line without a second thought. Sign the contract.
Sign the contract, big boy. Sign the contract.
No problem. Saturday, July 20th. See you there, buddy.
Just because Tyson didn't have any specific rules in mind back then doesn't mean he can't decide to shake things up now. So let's talk about that press conference at Fanatics Fest on August 18th, where things were supposed to be business as usual, a bit of hype, some classic trash talk, you know the drill, but no, Jake Paul had to turn it into a spectacle. Instead of just sticking to the script and throwing out some standard pre-fight banter, Jake decided to go full throttle on a mission to verbally destroy Mike Tyson. It wasn't enough for him to just poke fun. Oh no, he went for the jugular. Jake mocked Tyson's age, called him washed up, and as if that wasn't enough, he went after Tyson's health issues too, like some overconfident kid who thought he could tear down a legend with words alone. It was clear Jake wasn't just trying to sell the fight, he was trying to break Tyson mentally before they even stepped into the ring. But here's the thing, Jake clearly forgot who he was dealing with. Tyson, the man who once had the most feared fists in the world, didn't even flinch while Jake was going off like a firecracker. Tyson just stood there calm as ever, taking it all in, not a single word of retaliation, not even a twitch, just that stone-cold, unreadable expression that has sent chills down the spine of every opponent he's ever faced. It was like Tyson was letting Jake dig his own grave, storing every insult away for the moment when he could unleash his real response. Jake might have thought he was winning the mind games, but in reality he was setting himself up for a fall. Tyson's silence wasn't a sign of defeat, it was the calm before a storm Jake wasn't even close to being ready for. As Jake's rant continued, the vibe in the room started to change. What began as a typical press event quickly turned into something a whole lot more intense. You could feel it in the air, the audience was picking up on it too. Jake's over-the-top confidence started to crack, especially when Tyson, with the faintest of smiles,
Fight playing out.
Very painfully.
hinted at changing a few of the fight's rules, and let me tell you, it wasn't a big dramatic reveal, but it hit harder than anything Jake had dished out. The whole room went quiet, and you could practically see the wheels turning in Jake's head as he tried to make sense of what Tyson had just dropped for the first time that night. Jake Wagger took a hit, and there was this brief telling moment of doubt that flashed across his face. Jake ended up on the receiving end of a lesson in psychological warfare from a master. The energy in the room flipped, and suddenly Jake wasn't the big bad wolf anymore. He was the one in danger of being devoured. Jake's big mistake was underestimating Tyson's game plan. He didn't realize that Tyson had been playing the long game from the start. That press conference wasn't just about hyping a fight, it was the opening round, and Tyson dominated without even throwing a punch. I've been in. Now you're probably itching to know what rules Tyson dropped that sent Jake Paul spiraling into a meltdown. So the first rule that Tyson introduced was a knockout-only victory rule. That's right, no more sneaking by with technical knockouts, no more scraping by with decision wins. The only way to claim victory was to knock out your opponent, playing plain and simple. Now think about it, this rule is tailor-made for someone like Tyson. His entire career is built on delivering that one devastating punch that leaves his opponent seeing stars. But Jake, well, let's just
been in the ring with people with the same intention, but the actuality, no.
Say his rise in boxing has been, shall we say, controversial. There have always been whispers about the legitimacy of his victories, and now faced with the prospect of having to deliver a decisive knockout against one of the most feared punchers in history, Jake was staring down at her terrifying reality. But Tyson wasn't content with just one bombshell. Oh no, he had another twist up his sleeve. 2 extra rounds. That's right, the fight that was already set to push both men to their limits was now extended, making it even more grueling. Tyson was making it crystal clear that this wasn't going to be some quick flashy showdown. This was going to be a brutal test of endurance, a war of attrition where only the toughest would survive. For Tyson, who's gone on toe-to-toe with some of the hardest hitters in history, 2 more rounds were nothing. But for Jake, whose commitment to the sport has always been a bit suspect, this was a nightmare come to light. The impact of Tyson's announcements was immediate and brutal. Jake's unshakable confidence, that cocky grin he always wears like armor, vanished in an instant. The swagger gone. Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer who's built an entire persona around being fearless, suddenly looked like a deer in headlights, and his reaction was pure panic. He canceled the fight on the spot, crying foul and claiming the new rules were illegal. But come on, everyone in the room knew that was a load of nonsense. Jake's sudden decision to cancel wasn't some calculated move, it was a desperate attempt to escape a fight he knew he couldn't win. The truth was painfully clear. Jake was scared. The thought of stepping into the ring with Tyson under these new conditions had ripped away the mask, exposing the cracks in Jake's tough guy facade. His immediate reaction to pull the plug wasn't about legality, it was about survival, plain and simple. The backlash was swift and brutal. Jake's already shaky credibility took another nosedive. The story had changed. Jake wasn't the fearless fighter he pretended to be. Instead, he was exposed as someone who bit off way more than he could chew and was now desperately trying to dodge the consequences. Tyson's rule changes didn't just alter the fight, they blew Jake's cover, revealing him as a man completely out of his depth. And let's be real, Tyson did exactly what needed to be done. I mean, if he's putting in all this effort, why should he waste his time on someone like Jake Paul, especially when the word on the street is that Jake's victories might not be as legit as he'd like us all to believe. Yet the rumors have been swirling that Jake, our YouTube sensation turned boxer, has been greasing palms, bribing referees to secure those TKO victories that have been padding his record. Now, these allegations aren't exactly new, but man, the timing could be worse for Jake. The press conference had already shaken him up, and now, with all eyes on him, these rumors started to gain some serious traction. Suddenly everyone was revisiting his past fights, scrutinizing every decision, every TKO with a magnifying glass. It wasn't just about whether Jake could hold his own against Tyson anymore. People were starting to question if Jake's entire career was built on a house of cards. The idea that Jake might have been buying his way to victory hit the boxing community where it hurts. Boxing isn't just about fame or money, it's about raw talent, hard work, and being able to take a punch and keep going. These are the qualities that Tyson embodies even now. So the thought that
put on the performance of a lifetime on November 15th, and the universe will align for all of its glory and good for God.
Be in shape, be in good shape, because your health depends on it.
Hey, you're the one that wanted 8 2-minute rounds. You want to make it 10 threes? Don't talk to me about shape. Don't talk to me about shape.
Stay in shape, be all right.
You want 10 threes?
Okay.
You want 10
And let's be
Jake,
real.
with his flashy lifestyle and deep pockets, could just bypass all that by bribing referees. That was scandalous to say the least. As the rumors spread, the very foundation of Jake's career began to crumble in the public eye. And let's be clear, these weren't just idle gossip. The whispers had been there all along, especially whenever Jake won by TKO. There was always that uneasy feeling like something didn't quite add up, even though his recent victory against Mike Perry felt the same. The way some of those fights were stopped, the decisions that seemed a little too convenient, it all started to make sense. When Tyson dropped the KO-only rule, the impact on Jake's reputation was immediate and brutal. The #fake fighter started trending, and suddenly Jake wasn't just fighting Tyson, he was fighting to save his entire career. Even within the boxing community, the backlash was fierce. Fighters who had clawed their way up through the ranks, who had taken their losses and come back stronger, started to see Jake as someone who was trying to cheat his way to the top. The respect Jake had been craving from the boxing world was slipping further out of reach with every passing day. The mere idea that he might have bribed his way to victory was like a slap in the face to every fighter who had earned their place in the ring. And after cancelling the fight, Jake practically invited the public's hatred on himself. I mean, he's always the one trying to duck out instead of standing his ground. And let's be real, these highly anticipated fights don't come cheap. A fortune is spent on promotions, and you can't just back out of a fight for no good reason. I mean, if Tyson didn't cancel even after battling severe health issues, who does Jake think he is to pull the plug like that? But honestly, do you really think Tyson's just going to let him walk away after all this? No way, it's far from over.